Call to order the regular December meeting for the Clear Creek Board of Directors. Anna, you want to do the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Beverly Pickens, Pam Beaver,
Scott McGinley,
Terry Lincoln.
and Logan will be late.
Okay.
Paul Keller, General Manager.
Natalie Valdez, Admin Assistant.
Bill Powell Mesa, Chief Plant Operator. Roll call. Mr. Chairman, the next item, 3A, is oath of office for directors. We had been informed as a district that after a director takes office, at the first meeting, you then get sworn in, and the chair gets to swear you in, and you sign your affidavit. And that is what we do when the chair and Director Fickus got elected back in 2022. It's also what we do when the Board of Directors selects an applicant to fill a seat if there's a vacancy. But come to find out 5 minutes ago that when 3 members of the board file for and run unopposed and get appointed in lieu of an election by the county board of supervisors, then those directors have to go to the clerk to get sworn in and get their affidavit signed, or they can take their affidavit to a notary and get it signed, and that we can't do it here. Or we don't need to. No, we can't. Well, actually, yeah, can't do it. So, Mr. Chairman, you now are out of the duty of reading 3 oath of offices in a row.
Thank goodness.
So with that, we go to item 4, which is public comment.
Is what?
Open time.
Oh. That's not on mine, so. I'm
Number
confused.
4.
Oh. Oh, okay. I'll be all right. Do you have anything? Anybody? Okay. Consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, on the November 20th, 2024 proposed minutes, I've got a few items that I'm going to just get into the record for amendments and ask that when you approve these, you approve them as amended, or if there's others that you have. Under open time public comment, Director McVeigh added that the COM Alliance for Family Farms, I'd like to make sure that we know that that's the Community Alliance for Family Farms, or CAFF. But just for clarity's sake, on the second page, about 2/3 down, under Distribution Supervisor Morgan Rao, in response to a question about 17-hour shifts, it says, blah, 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 we can have the crew overwork. Well, that should be, we can't or we cannot. So we will fix that. There is on page 4, about halfway down the page, general discussion, they plan to bring back after some updates. Jan Kelly said that the report is expected at the January meeting, and we could have a half-year budget and actuals and adjustments then. And so we're going to get rid of that in December because it is super confusing. I think I may have made some comment about we'd be working on it in December, but there's no reason to have that in there. Under the general manager's report, and I just didn't catch this before. before, but I think it would be more clear if, after the second line, we said, also mention application for a JPIA risk grant, dash, insert this time for a walk-behind concrete saw, similar to other successful grants. There's other districts that have gotten a risk prevention grant by getting a walk-behind saw, and so the distribution supervisor and staff said that would be helpful. And then on the first line of the operations report, it says GM Kelly mentioned 2, and I think that's supposed to be TWO instead of TO. And for the finance committee minutes, just for clarity's sake, about the 4th line down after item A, it says GM Kelly mentioned you call Valley of the Moon, and then the next line, as well as calling Buckingham Park Water District for the Roman Richardson CPA, just so it's clear that what that is. Just pointing out moving on to a couple other items, just that still working on the P&L reports. I know I provided you with some preliminary ones. The bookkeeper is working with the CPA, J.R. Martin, to find the best way to get that large grant revenue and expenses out of there so it's more clear and understandable. And that's getting closer. Any other questions for the board?
I move to accept the consent agenda as amended with the minutes from 11:20 and finance of 12:10. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. 401 vote there. All right, there is nothing to report on the USBR account reconciliation. So we will move to item 6B, which is the district audit RFP selection. As the board will recall, in October, we approved the release of a request for proposals for auditing services after the previous auditor for us had completed the FY22 in August. We had asked for them for a schedule to complete FY23 and 24 in the coming year, and they then took their 10-day notice and ended our agreement with it. We sent this to over 30 CPA firms, kind of the greater Sacramento Bay Area, north, up through Redding, and even to the coast. I will say that a couple things were confirmed that we've heard from others. That we did get a response from quite a few that said, yeah, 5 years ago we used to do government audits, we don't do them anymore. And others did mention capacity issues. And then there was at least one that said that combination of they're so busy that they really don't even have time to put together an RFP, which does take time and it does take resources, and that they get customers on referrals. And at least one mentioned that asking for a 5-year proposal may have been a barrier to some proposers as well. And I know that there are a few districts out there that are now, because of that feedback, are looking for 3 years proposal. We did get 2 qualified audit RFP responses from 2 CPA forms. We put together a spreadsheet, thanks to bookkeeper Melissa, that has pertinent information, and that's what I attached. So you have, it's, the spreadsheet's kind of long and wide, so this thing has, basically a couple of cells, per sheet. But it has your two companies, Harshwall and Company and Richardson and Company. It has your contact information, your qualifications, firm size, some experience information, as well as their proposed sort of method and milestones, and just some additional information. That was in lieu of adding about 50 pages to your packet. So if anybody absolutely wants to see their proposal, there's printed copies in the back. The Finance Committee reviewed them and is recommending Harshwall and Company. And for the reasons spelled out in your memo, they're understanding and clearly stating the schedule to get audits caught up for FY 23 and 24 by June of 2025. The firm has the staffing resources to stay on task through potential challenges. For example, if a particular member of the firm that's working on our audit gets sick or is on medical, they have actually staff in other offices to cover for them. And you might recall that was one of the issues with our previous auditor. The referrals and experience with community services districts went well, and I did talk to one of their reference with a good report. The proposal was thorough, professional, and substantial, and also that their engagement letter with another district had a timeline and a mutual opt-out clause. So based on that recommendation, it's before you to authorize me to sign an engagement letter. I informed Harshwall and Company on Thursday of last week, and they got us this engagement letter. It's at your table or at your spot. I was not able to get it actually in the packet, but it's there. You can see it's basically the same as the copy of the other one that I had asked their other district to send to us. One couple of pertinent items. One bummer is they didn't number their pages, but on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th page, you'll see that they have their $20,000 fee for to get the FY23 completed, which is in their proposal. And then on the next, at the top of the second to last page, this engagement letter may be terminated by either party with or without cause on a 10 days written notice. That was a line that we didn't have in our previous engagement letter. It was on one-way termination clause for HMS. I will just point out to you that they do have their schedule of costs: $20,000 for FY23, $21,000 for FY24, $22,050 for FY25, and it lays out to FY27. And before that, they actually lay out very succinctly that once we sign this letter of engagement, they'll commence their audit field work the second week of January or before, final audit field work the last week of February, and draft audit and management letter for review for FY23 in mid-March. Final audit report last week of March, and then they would start the field work for FY24 in June, and have actually that, their plan is to have that the end of June, at least a draft. And I might add that one of the engagements we have with J.R. Martin, the CPA, is they're going to do some free audits and be able to work with them. So the fact that they understood our desired schedule and put it in writing, I think is significant. So that's my recommendation is, as per the Finance Committee, is that we.
So our thought process behind that for you two was a couple of things. Yes, they were a lot more expensive, 12.5 versus, or 12.3, whichever one it was, versus the 20,000. We had to look at how many employees they had, so that we didn't have the same thing with, that happened with Chico Firm. And then their timeline was really good, and that was one of the other things that we liked is knowing that even if they had a person quit or leave, we would still be covered. And so that was kind of our thought. The cost, I mean, it's up there, but at least we know we're gonna have 2 years done by the end of September or next year. The only thing that concerns me, Paul, is that I did read that earlier since I was here a little bit early, and I counted the pages out, which was page 7, is we know our books are still not right. And if they're still not right, is that gonna foul things up? Because on page 7, we acknowledge that the following unexpected circumstances will result in an increase of our fees. Issues with the prior audit firm, prior year accounting balances, or report disclosures that impact the current year engagement, and then an excessive number of audit adjustments. So I can see that 20,000 may not be what we're gonna end up paying.
I think we have ourselves covered with that based on our engagement with J.R. Martin, our CPA. They have completed at least 2 of their 3 tasks. Their first task was to handle all of the journal entries and adjustments called out in the FY22 audit. Those have been completed. So those now matching and flowing into the FY23 audit will be one avoidance of this.
Okay.
The second thing is they've been working on getting our FY24 updated information, like our books cleaned up. And then there's third task, which is to do a pre-audit on FY23 with the auditor that we hired. So that will, I have some confidence that we are not gonna have that same problem.
Okay.
And they are on contract to do that through June of this year, of 2025.
Right.
So that should cover both FY23 and 24. But it's all that.
Yeah.
Standard language.
Well, it's standard language, but it's money out of our pocket if they want to, and it's not money we want. I mean, that's why we're paying them more bucks to get them, so, we do have to worry about it.
Yeah. All right, anybody from the public, and then we can have a motion and a vote.
We have a motion?
I move that we accept the RFP from, what's that?
Hirschwald and Company.
Hirschwald and Company.
And need you to authorize my signature on that.
And authorize our general manager to sign the appropriate documents.
Second.
I just didn't want it to be 2 finance committee members.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 401, thank you very much.
I just didn't know if that was appropriate or not.
I think it's cleaner to have a non-finance committee, but it doesn't matter. All right. Bill. Next item, 6C, water treatment plant improvement report from Pace Engineering and Treatment Division update. We know that last month we had a nice update from our distribution supervisor. So this month we have an opportunity to have our chief plant operator, Bill Mesa, here to give us an update. But we also are combining it with the engineering report from Pace on the treatment plant. And Bill had suggested, which was a really good suggestion, because the last time the board or the community would have seen the attached sanitation survey, which is dated November 22nd, 2022, I know we put it in.
It's in the
Another
packet.
part.
It's in here.
It's in the packet, but it's good to have that as your base, because a lot of this, these sanitary reports have, survey inspections, have been calling out for a few years some of the issues that we need to have the engineering report on. Plus, as the board knows, we, train 6, filter 8, then shut down, and so, we needed to get an engineering report on that. We had a proposed cost estimate from the company of $300,000 for that. And I guess the other thing too, and then just have Bill come up and kind of walk us through it, but the Pace Engineering actually did a really good job of sort of explaining what the treatment plant does before they actually get into some options. So if all you did was run to the bottom line of what the costs were, please go back and read some of the other stuff, because it's actually very good and informative. So Bill, come on up and walk us through a good old report.
Thank you. So hopefully everyone read the report, and part of the report in the packet was the sanitary survey, the last one done in 2022. That report does reference some of the things we're trying to do here. As Paul's mentioned, we've been working with Pace Engineering to come up with this engineering report, and staff has been on a few emails, phone calls to get to this point. But so the report starts off with a nice little introduction, a little history about the treatment plant, conveyance of water, and its location, and then talks about the existing treatment facilities, kind of breaks down each process, the raw water intake. It points out that we have two 40-inch butterfly valves, talks about a couple different intake levels. Our pre-filter chlorination point points out that the injection points are very inaccessible to staff, which they've been estimated forever. And it points out some piping that might need to be replaced. Coagulation or chemical addition, same thing. The injection point is inaccessible to district staff. The report points out both coagulants used, one's a filter in, one's a primary coagulant. Then we get into the filtration, provides an overview. The filters are probably the biggest part of this report. The report talks about the difference between the two filters, the 8x40s and the 10x50s. The 8x40s are, two of them are from 1976. One of them is called the Chestnut filter. The Chestnut edition. There was supposed to be a filter done by the phone company and at the treatment plant. If you go down and look behind the phone company, there's ears for a filter and some valving and stuff. Kind of neat. That filter 3 is from 1984, and the rest of the filters are from 1986.
96 or 86?
1996. Talks about some performance, filter performance, points out that we have a 0.1 NTU filter performance requirement, which is too tight. It's because we're an approved alternate technology in line filtration. The report also goes down to talk about some electrical needs, some panel issues, and I'll get to that. Talks a little bit about backwashing. Backwashing is the reversal flow of the filters to clean them out. That's the short version of that. And then last but not least, post-filter chlorination, pretty much the same thing. The injection point is buried, can't get to it. It does say that there's a 24-inch line around the chlorination building, and the peak demand conditions has a velocity of 17 feet per second. I did not run that number, but that's probably occur. I believe anywhere over 8 or 10 feet per second, and pipe is scouring pipe. So even if you cut that in half, you'd probably be pushing the maximums there. And then the next part of the report talks about recommended improvements. There's 3 alternatives, and most of those are just different filter configurations, but the other different processes are all going to be the same for all 3. The raw water intake, it suggests that we obviously replace 2 40-inch butterfly wells. That might be an easy task. The chlorination points, the pre and the post, both excavate the injection coils, put in vaults so we can access them, and replace the piping so it's not undersized. Coagulation, same thing as the injection points and the chlorine. Just put a vault in. It does point out that no improvements are recommended to the secondary coagulation point. Yeah, that's the pre-filter, or the filter and injection point, and the reason that doesn't, it's inaccessible to staff, but there's piping and other things that are on top of it, so even if you wanted to dig it up, you wouldn't need to. That's the way it is with a water treatment plant. You would dig it up and expose it, the piping would look like spigot. So sometimes things just cover it. So filters and the alternative and the recommendations. Again, there's 8 filters, 6 trains, 4 8x40s, 4 10x50s. It's going to mention trains 1 and 2, which are the 8x40s. And trains 3, 4, 5, and 6 are 10x50s. Perfect. So jumping right into it, alternative 1 consists of replacing trains 1 and 2 with filters 1 through 4. Completely removing them and putting in 8x50 filters. The reason for that is all the piping, valves is old, can't use it. We keep finding more and more corrosion in that 1976 filter piping. So it would just be a lot easier to rip them out, put new ones in with new piping. In this alternative, the filters would run not in trains, so they'd run independently. So we would go from 6 filter trains and basically just add 2 more. So there'd be 4 independently running filters there. Lots of electrical and improvements. The other filters would get completely rehabbed, so they would stay the same. And that would consist of removing all the media, blasting, recoating, all new piping and controls, and then moving down to alternative 2. That would be removing filters 1 through 4 altogether. We would use that end of the building as storage or just whatever, you know, have a whole lot of room. And they would add 3 more 10x50s to the end of where the other 10x50s are. The treatment plant is actually, it was designed to have more filters for full fill out, so there's actually piping there to accommodate this alternative.
How many was it designed for, 10x50s?
3 more. 3 for stuff.
Was it option 2 or 3 that talked about expanding to 9?
So that's the next,
That's not okay.
yeah, that's the next one.
That's fine.
Alternative 3 is a little confusing, and I'll explain it. In the EDW report, it points out that we have a really tight filter performance standard of a 0.1, and that's because we're an approved alternate technology. In an approved technology, like direct filtration, we could be at 0.3 and 95% of our readings into you, and that's water leaving the plant. Sometimes it's difficult to meet that performance standard. So alternative 3 would be converting filters 1 to 4 into roughing filters, and then adding 3 more 10x50s to the other side of the building, expanding the building, similar to alternative 2. So water would first go through a roughing filter and then go around the plant and then go through one of the other filters and then on out to the system. It's a little bit more complex, it certainly costs a lot more money. But it would change our technology from inline filtration to direct filtration.
What's the advantage?
Water quality, attacking organics, lowering disinfectant byproducts when chlorine gets combined with organics and dirt and stuff in the water, it can create cancer-causing carcinogens, disinfectant byproducts. So not that we struggle with meeting those, it's sort of, it's getting warm.
You look warm.
What's that?
You look warm. You look
Well,
warm.
I think that, I don't know if that heater just kicked on or what, but it just got hot.
It is, it's that heat just keep it.
I might go back over there for a door.
Open that pipe right there.
there.
Is the trash can right there?
The,
Fire extinguisher, Bill.
No, that's fine, I'll get through it.
I just turned it off.
I think it just kicked on, it just really got me.
I'm just confused, is
That
that
sure is cold in here now.
But that vent,
I might move it out there, I'll do the door. So, yeah, advantages, it'd make it easier to meet that turbidity standard, especially when the lake's dirty. So point one can be really tough especially after the fire, it was really tough to meet that. It'd just be better for water quality. This was our chance to get something in the report, could we do something just to change it up to make it better? So, I know,
Do either of any of those options address the penstock issue?
all three of them address the penstock
Okay,
issue.
excellent.
So that's kind of why I went through that first. The three alternatives are mainly about the filters, piping, valves, and controls.
Right.
Which one of these alternatives is set up for, if any, for down the road, if we needed to be enlarged again, would be the easiest one to increase?
Alternative one, because then down the road you could still add 3 more 10x50s to the end. So alternative one, the major difference is changing the first 4 filters, which are 8x40s, they become 8x50s. They would run independently, not in parallel in trains. And that would still leave the exposed piping on the end for a future plant expansion. So alternative one, that would be my recommendation. Either alternative 1 or alternative 3. Okay. Each one has its pros and cons.
So what I wanted to ask you, when I read it, Bill, it appeared that the 1976 equipment is running better than the 1996 equipment. So, but it's 1976, so is it, we can rehab it okay, or should we just kick it to the curb?
So when it comes to the filters and piping inside the plant, the 1976 equipment would get completely gutted and not rehab like the 96 equipment. The 96 equipment would still use the piping and the shells of the filters, but it would be all new piping, valves, controls, electrical, and filters. So the actual physical metal, the 8x40 metal would be brand new. So the 1976 stuff would be completely redone.
You have stuff that's there from 76, 80. Do these proposals address upgrading all the electrical? I'm assuming that a lot of that's outdated now. Are you running into trouble?
So some of the electrical, it's on the bullet point here to talk about the electrical. It points out an MCC, Motor Control Center. That's where the service from PG&E comes into the building.
Okay.
That panel's obsolete. That's from 96, that would get completely gutted, and upgraded, because they don't make parts for that anymore. We've had quite a few problems with that. Just, some burning smells, we found rodents in there, some of the conductors were burnt.
Oh,
So.
is there a risk of fire?
Suppose if, something were to catch on fire and we weren't there, absolutely.
Well, even if you were there, you'd have to evacuate.
If we were there and it was on fire, yeah, but something we couldn't, well, electrical fire, I didn't put that one, but. There's risk of flooding, corroded pipes, we keep stumbling across. I think in the last board packet, we had put, a little thing in there about, a pipe breaking and flooding the office in the bathroom. Well, if that would have happened in the middle of the night of the weekend, the plant would have shut down, most likely.
So if there's electrical faults like that, an outdated panel, what happens if it gets fried? I'm not looking, if it's part of these options, that's fine, but is it a priority? Would it be more important to do now than repairing the train?
Yeah, so, electrical needs need to be addressed immediately, just like, train 6, just because train 6 is unusable. All the other filters are showing signs of, same thing as train 6.
But if we lost the electrical panel, the entire plant shuts down, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's where the service comes in. It takes quite a bit of work to wire something in. Days worth of work.
Okay, so does that make it more important than, I mean, obviously, those have to be done in repairs to the train, but is the electrical more of a priority?
It's, yeah,
It's all.
it's all a
I
priority.
know that.
I'll be honest with you, yeah, I think anything sort of, where you have a fire hazard or a flooding hazard, that would be a priority. But, yeah, there's definitely, there would definitely be a problem if that were to catch on fire and be completely unusable.
So my thought process is if we choose one of these options, will the panel hold up long enough to get the funding and, possibly even until the next Prop 218 process, where we have to get, change in rates approved? Or do we need to be prioritizing maybe doing something before that? In other words, how long is the bubble gum and duct tape gonna hold us together?
Well, I think that's really nice to say, but every time we prioritize in the budget last year to do, train 6, right?
Right.
Train 6, that was a priority, and somehow the money got used other places, so we make priorities till it costs them. Until we save that money and stop using it other places, it's not gonna happen.
I think, Scott, though, too, with your concern is that, we do have to just say, here's the focus, but we're gonna have to get probably a grant or a bond of something.
Oh, yeah.
And because, look how long it's taken to do the cotton picking pond. How long have you been working on that?
Since 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here was 6 years. So
Exactly.
you can bet that those needs it'll take that long. Maybe half that time, but look how long it took just to get this report when we allocated the money. Things are just slow process.
I agree, and that's part of why I'm bringing it up, is there something we need to be maybe self-funding? So that the plant, my concern would be, if we have a major electrical problem and the plant goes down, we're gonna have to self-fund.
Well,
And it's
we
emergency
don't
work.
have to wait until 2026 to pass another Prop 218.
No.
We could do it next year. It's not gonna make anybody happy out
No,
there,
it won't.
out in the community, that's for damn sure.
But
But, you would have to raise your rates astronomical to try to pay for something of that. That's why we've got
I
it.
mean, the electrical,
I don't know, what was the electrical cost?
I think, 300,000 for that panel.
Yeah.
so you're looking at, with central technical portion, about, what, 225,000?
So I think we had that money set aside for the 26.
Yes. I don't know, I'm trying to express or get to the root of, is the train more important, or is the electrical more important? If the electrical's down, all the trains are down. One train's down, can we, The other aspect of that, if you have electrical ones, is the capacity of the filters or the valves and whatnot reduced. So you can't produce as much, water.
Is piecemeal recommended though too? Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
So that's kind of where we're at now. Train 6 is down, our capacity is down. This summer, our challenge was, we lost that filter, so to keep up with demand, we had to push that water through the other filters. And as time goes on, we're gonna lose another filter.
This report said train 4 is not in good shape.
Yeah, train 4 is not in good shape. Filter 1 of train 1 is not in good shape. We just inspected that last week. I got a fresh set of pictures. There's depression in the media there too. I think all the filters are having issues now. So things are just breaking inside of them.
Well, like the report said though, pretty much the entire water treatment plant has exceeded its life expectancy.
That's a nice way of putting it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think too, just a quick reminder, is the whole reason to do this engineering report is with a goal to get the plant back to its design capacity. And, so I mean, that's kind of the overriding thing. My suggestion is we have this conversation, you now know what there are there, we asked, Pace Engineering, did they have a recommendation, and they didn't necessarily, they don't do, it's these three, kind of pick it out. Probably could go back to them and get some kind of sense of what would be, some phased priority. I mean, I kind of think electrical and starting the rehab portion of a couple of these trains might be one focus, right? How much is that? That's, $1.5 million of the 8 million or 9 million. So go that. And the other thing is too, we could ask them to give us a proposal on writing the grant and going after the grant and stuff. I mean, one of the reasons to have a survey in here is, the state right now is in a financial bind. They don't have as much money, but I think we could show with the combination of the survey and the engineering report that, this is emergency.
Yeah.
We get a power surge that blows up the panel, we don't have any water for people. We get, we have another summer like this last summer, and train 4 and other trains start diminishing in their capacity, then, people aren't gonna have any water. So we got issues with that too. So, I don't know, I kind of think getting from them sort of maybe a phased priority that maybe we can attack these. The electrical, we might be able to self-fund that over the next year and a half. And so, real quick though, just a reminder, in June, when we adopted the current budget, we had an estimate for train 6 of $300,000. We could not use that estimate to go out and just do the work. At that amount, our thing requires that we need some engineering on it, and you gotta put it out to bid, and you gotta go through the process of doing that. Plus, we didn't have 300,000. We had about what we thought was 100 and something thousand. So we allocated some money to do the engineering report, which we did. And we allocated some money to also do the tank inspection, which is gonna be coming to the board in the next couple months. But this gives us, I think, substantial information and a roadmap to go after, both priority and funding. That's just kind of my recommendation, and I think using, $20,000 or $30,000 that we have to get that refined is probably a good use of our resources at this point. And yes, we could be sitting here next year and say, hey, now's the time to go out for a Prop 218. Let's do it now, because we know what costs.
Well, I think that and I think almost better to me than Pace is Bill.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Bill knows the priority, and he has quietly and nicely been not overbearing, but you've told us that the train's going down, and now you've told us that the electricity is in not good shape either.
Well, and then you read this report and it's all gone to kaput.
So, I mean, you know how it runs, you know how you bandaged it together. So you know how it needs to be unbandaged and put back together, in my opinion, better than anybody.
Thank you for that. Just real quick, we do develop workarounds. We talk all the time. If something were to go down, an electrical panel failure is way more workable than a filter failure. If the filter goes down, that's not an in-house repair.
No.
That's not call an electrician, let's build a panel out in the parking lot and figure something out to keep the power on. A panel we can do, a filter we can't.
And that's what we need you to tell us.
There's definitely priorities. I mean, it's all important without a doubt. It's hard to say what's the next thing to go. I can tell you that, and I think I did mention it, that if the guys were not there at the plant when that pipe had broke, and it has been leaking for several minutes before water started coming in around the seals of the plant door, because they were in there eating a sandwich. And just like that, it flooded the bathroom, it overwhelmed the floor drains. So if that had happened on the weekend, that would have definitely probably worked its way up into a motor or something. Had it have not triggered a water quality alarm, we would have never known about it. So things like that can happen, and we found another pipe alignment with more corrosion. That the corrosion worked its way through the pipe wall and the well. And we're working on trying to get that piece of pipe replaced. Unfortunately, it's not that easy, but something we're working on. One thing I wanted to point out before I'm done is these are water treatment plant needs, not necessarily water treatment plant wants. So it doesn't necessarily address some of our things for safety or things like that, like a bigger bathroom or a shop or anything like that. So I just want the board to know that these are needs. And to bring the plant back to the original design capacity, so to do what it was intended to do. That's pretty much all I have. If you have more questions, I'm going to answer them.
Thank you.
We have one from the audience.
I have comments, questions. It took since 2018 for the filtration pond to get done, but now we have a management staff and a board that's actually very much so pressing on things getting done and capable. So things have moved faster now under this board and this general manager than it used to. So that's at least a plus, that if we have to do things, it's theoretically, if there's money available through funding, grants, blah, 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 it has moved faster in the last couple of years than it has over the last decade plus. Of the options, the option 3-1, I think of like my sand filter for my pool, having it go through a roughage situation. Will it help on the long run decrease the cost and requirements for chemicals, or would that still be the same?
It'd be taking chemical away from one part of the plant, added to the other. It'd be the same or a little bit more. That alternative was just for water quality. So it wasn't necessarily the least of its concern.
And then do you think the trains are failing faster now because they're overcompensating for the one that's down?
Oh yeah, this last couple of years didn't help. I just think they're old. I just think
Everything has a tough time, including us when you get old.
Speak for yourself.
So, Bill, one option that I would consider is, again, sit down with Pace and do some prioritizing here. I mean, the problem is you've got, a $10 million problem list of things that you could say they're all 1 and 1A priorities, right? But, there may be some things in which rehabbing train 6 and going after train 4 and the electrical is kind of like a phase 1, maybe that's something that makes a lot of sense. Because, one thought too could be as you rehab the current 10 by 50s, maybe then you say, well, maybe now we could go with alternative three, maybe just to get more quality thing, because maybe we replace out the first four with these roughing and add the capacity. It does prevent you from future capacity enhancements, but, I mean, if you got to your design capacity, I don't know if you're gonna need a future growth enhancement size for 20 or 30 years, but I don't know.
Yeah, 20 or 30 years would be beyond me.
So speaking to that though, since the current loan that we're about 18 months out of paying off, that's 30-year loan, what would your recommendation be that would be the best case for us for the next 30 years, so that we are providing the community with the best option we can long-term for them?
Still leaning towards alternative one, replace those 4 filters and make them run independently. That still helps water quality, certainly helps operations.
Okay.
Because that alternative still addresses the electrical, still addresses all the other filters, the controls. It'll, yeah. I think alternative one.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm thinking we can do sort of priority phase thing, and we can do it all within priority one context.
Okay.
Maybe we are able to get a few $100,000 worth of projects done ourselves. Maybe we go and get an SRF fund, a state revolving loan fund, funded, and you know, that's a, you know, maybe it's for $8 million loan. Well, you know, just strict line, you know, that's a 30-year loan, that's $7 or $8 fee per year, per person.
About 860, I've been running some numbers.
So, you know, so those are things that I think we need, we can't just pick this out of the air, but we need to kind of look at it. And, you know, I lean towards, let's cherry pick a few high priorities and try to focus on getting those done within the next 18 months. In the meantime, package the rest of it in either a grant or a partial grant or a loan application that we can. I mean, otherwise, I mean, we've got great information here. This is a great start. This really helps get us.
Are you wanting, some kind of, recommendation from us?
Yeah, I mean, give us some feedback. I mean, I'm telling you what I think. You know, we talked to Pace last week, and you know, we kind of pressed them for, you know, a recommendation. They said, hey, well, we made recommendations. We got 3 alternatives in here.
Yeah.
And as Bill well described,
How much would it cost to, and is this doable, Bill, when I ask this question? How much would it cost for us to rehab 2 trains, say 1 and 4?
or
Well,
6
you mean
and
6
4.
6 and 4.
6 and 4,
Yeah,
sorry.
train one is 2 filters. So that would cost, 800,000.
Yeah.
That's what they.
How about, I missed the 6 and 4, how much?
Same.
Same?
Same.
So
Yeah.
see, in all of them, they're saying it's 426,000.
Yeah. Mhm.
For filter 6, and then filter 4 is 561,000. Is that because there's 2 in there?
Train, yeah.
Filter
Because
4,
filter 4 would also, encompass filter 3.
okay.
And that wouldn't address.
Well, that's
the
weird.
electrical
How come like on alternative 1, and I'm sure it's on the other ones, it's showing construction costs for filter 3 is 561,000, and also 561,000 for filter 4.
Because you're going to bigger filters. Filters 3 and 4 go from 8x50s to, 8x40s to 8x50s, and all new everything, new metal, new filters, new controls.
So train 4 is gonna cost $1 million?
Train 4 is 1 10x50.
Okay, which,
Okay, I just put it away, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And are we looking at alternative?
1, just let's look at
Okay.
1. So it was confusing what trains are and what filters are.
So in the alternative cost estimate, so I've got alternative 2 open.
I think it's basically the same.
Alternative 1, so it talks filter 1 and 2, which would be train 1. Filters 3 and 4, that would be train 2.
Oh, that's train 2.
Correct.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so the reason why those are different than trains 3, 4, 5, and 6 is because the scope of work would be entirely different.
So filter 6 is actually train 4.
Filter 6 is train 4.
Okay, so that's train 4. Okay, which is, okay, and this is train 6.
It's confusing. We
Yeah.
talk a lot about train 6. Train 6 is technically also.
Okay, so they're both 426,000, okay. All right.
So alternative 1 would get rid of the trains. Everything would just be called filters. Or actually, the terms could be used interchangeably.
Okay,
Because they'd be working singly versus doubly.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so how long would it take them or you or whoever did to fix train 6?
I think the ERS contractor gave us a timeline for that. I want to say inside of 2 months, but that also depended on what kind of other repairs needed to be made inside, corrosion or we know that there's some welding that needs to be done, but inside of 2 months. I can check on that and get back to you.
So is it doable to do train 6, and when that gets done, for a few months, try and save some more money to do the next one that you think is the most important? I mean, is that a doable way to do things?
Yeah, the only time it wouldn't be doable probably is the summertime, but if it came down to it, we'd muscle through it, just like we did with the pond service, we just did it.
Well, in the case of train 6, it's not operational now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we already went through a summer without it. If it were up to me, no, maintenance time is the winter time, in the summertime, everything's gotta work, but except this last summer.
So, another question, if we choose one of these options, let's say the one you prefer one, with all the work going down, will the water treatment plant be down for any length of time and not be able to provide water for the district? The electrical panels changed out, all this piping, everything?
Yes, so definitely the piping. The piping going around the chlorine room, 24-inch pipeline, that's the other connectors from A to B. There wouldn't be a way to convey water through the treatment plant if that was being replaced, so there would be downtime, significant downtime, without a doubt.
So when we use the well water, it still goes through the,
No,
so could we do that?
Correct, yeah,
we have to,
that would be our contingency there.
which means it has to be done in the winter time.
Because of how much well capacity can pump out and what the usage is.
And the cost?
At 6
The
hours plus an
electricity.
acre foot.
We would try to just, do the stuff that would cause major plant shutdowns in the winter time, if we could. Excavation, that's not a wintertime job.
No.
It would have to go in phases, without a doubt. Centerville relies on that treatment plant too, we think there's some coordination there. But, if that's what it took to fix the plant, there's no other option.
Right.
So,
Can you give us, won't hold you to it, a general idea of what an extended downtime would look like?
just the 24-inch pipeline, going through that, going around the building, all the welding that would have to be done, I would say weeks, maybe that would probably be a 2 to 3 week job, and then go back online.
You could probably try to do the electrical at the same time then?
He doesn't.
Yeah, without a doubt, no, I'm just,
You organize it.
I don't think we thought this far ahead. We just kind of thought fix, not how, the best way to fix it, but without a doubt, keeping the plant producing water would, that would be, high on our priority list.
I think, again, that's part of the discussion of the prioritization is you then get into your discussion about, this is not, we put out an $8 million project to bid and we get a proposal and we're 6 months later, we're done. This is gonna take some time and you gotta plan it out. And, there's, like I said, train 6, we're not using it, we probably just, any time now. But train 4, well, geez, we're depending on that a little bit, even though it's starting to degrade. So again, this is stuff we haven't thought about, but I think we would need to talk about.
Yeah, certain valves on certain filters, when they go to get replaced, they're pressurized by the system, so the plant would have to be completely shut down and change those out.
Right.
There's still the old piping system there from 1976, the original pipes, the twin 18s. Those could probably be brought back online to treat water temporarily on one side of the plant, while the other side of the plant is being worked on. So sitting there thinking about it, there's probably ways to limit downtime.
Good.
Certainly, if the first alternative was chosen, and you kept the first 4 filters, and we could do that. Actually, now that I think about it, if that alternative were chosen, down the road, roughing filters could get converted to roughing filters years down the road.
Right.
Okay.
If alternative 2 was chosen, you're cutting that side of the plant, so that 1976 system would be gone. So it wouldn't be able to be used. So
that's another reason to
More
avoid
pros.
option 2 then.
more pros than cons.
Okay.
Thank you. You've given us a lot of information.
Wow.
Bill
Happy to do it.
mentioned Centerville. Have you shared any of this information or had these conversations with that board or that GM recently?
The GM, yes, the board, no, and just in conversations, but not since we've gotten this report, no.
No, I did let the GM know that we were doing an engineering report based on the sanitary survey, which they have received. But didn't want to send it to them until we had at least this conversation. And, so I think the board knows and that, our contract with them is up in 3 years, and we think now is the time to start talking to them about, the contract. And so, next year, we're gonna have an ad hoc committee of the 2 boards to start talking together, and then Bill and I can use that to talk to the GM, because there's issues with them tapping into the conduit, and there's issues with, kind of their reporting on what they use, and there's issues like they depend on our 1 million gallon tank as basically their storage, so those are operational things that we need to get resolved. They have issues with, sort of our billing and what we bill them, back almost 30 years ago, there was an admin fee that we billed them for, and I guess the districts couldn't agree on that admin fee back then, so they just picked a number and started it with CPI every year. And so we need to come up with a better way to do that, because there probably should be more as it relates to the treatment plant, because there's this 25% deal that, some years may be justified, most years probably not. In other words, they get, we Clear Creek are paying for stuff that they're getting the benefit for, and so we need to work on that and quantify it and basically get it so that we repair that. They are aware that we had to take out a loan for the grant to do the ponds, and that the interest costs on that we are going to bill them for, because they're getting the benefit of all this free money of getting the grant.
So they are aware of that. Now, With all other costs, including any emergency work, are we waiting until the end of the year or however it takes for a reconciliation before we get reimbursed for some of those things?
For what things?
Oh, I don't know, actuators, or if there's an emergency, or you have to replace a pump or something, if it's $10,000 or more, are we waiting, and funding that for a year for them?
You mean like an unforeseen?
Yeah, unforeseen, it's emergency
Let's do it, so.
affairs.
I didn't get it,
So,
so, yeah, somebody explain it.
so, you know, let's say we had a,
Well, we gotta
an
replace
emergency.
this pipe that,
Or let's use this electrical panel because that's a real number. And let's say something bad were to happen and we had to immediately figure out a $300,000 bill. It's our treatment plant. We're required to fix it. They're gonna hold us to it. And we're going to write that check, but the way the contract's written, we're not going to recuperate their 25%, more. We're not gonna recuperate the 25% until the end of the fiscal year, until those numbers are audited.
right,
And that's
So
the number
we're
that
funding
you're
them.
So we play the bank, and I'll say that on camera because I've told Chris, their manager, that many times over the years. So that's one of the components of the contract, I don't know. So reconciliations and true-up should be quarterly,
Yeah.
to capture expenses like that.
those are all the list of things. As it pertains to this, it's kind of, I don't know, Bill's giving you a super good report on all this stuff, and his feelings as it relates to option one. I suggest that you give me a head nod, that go back to Pace with Bill, sit down and talk about some priorities, how we, and then options to fund it, and if it, and get from them a cost estimate to put those packets together for funding.
How much will they charge us to do that?
I don't know, somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 would be my guess.
I move to direct, staff to take this report and to go back and discuss with Pace any further clarifications and in moving forward. And look for grants.
Now, can Pace do that, looking for the grants for
Oh,
it?
yeah. You know, you've got a thing on there for the distribution, grant that, they put together for that, so they'll do that. So,
I'll second that one, well, it's
That
finance.
will, that will be
committee,
charged
you guys.
for, you're good with it being charged for,
What being charged for?
when they go and discuss with Pace?
It's the cost of doing business.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't,
Hands are basically tied, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta do what we need to get it done, and unfortunately, it's gonna put money out now to get it fixed later.
every time we look at the bills, it's depressing.
We have a motion, we need a second.
I thought you did say.
I stopped because we're both on the finance committee.
Oh, I will second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I wanna roll back on a question being that, no, you're fine, sorry, Bill, is that it's done at the end of the fiscal year, but does that mean we have to have like our audit done, and that's when they pay us back their 25%?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, I don't
Yeah.
like that either.
So that's
So that's like 3 years of no pay.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the things that really grinds us,
That
not
didn't
only
happen.
that, but also grinds us because the audit,
Let's keep everybody involved.
we don't even get to, our next reconciliation with them is FY '22,
Okay.
No.
because that's the most recent one.
Right, but that's still rolling us like 2 years coming into a third.
We wouldn't want to miss your
It'll buy
paycheck.
you,
Yeah.
it'll buy you a lunch.
Buy some shark bite fish for my house.
Cool, well, thank you to the board, and, again, I think this helps us too.
It was a lovely report, how depressing it was, but it was.
It was quite excellent.
Yeah.
It was really
It
good.
was very sad.
I'd like to make one comment too, on the sanitary survey, it was good reading because it told us how so far past the life expectancy of a lot of the equipment was. and that kind of thing. But it also mentioned that in spite of all those issues, that the water treatment plant is being well operated. And I want to thank our chief operator for that.
Bill is doing a fantastic job and under the circumstances, and he's training some good people there that are helping him with it. And, really, we only have the options that are laid out in that report because we're still operational.
One of the other important things that they mentioned in that Senator survey was the need for a capital improvement plan. You know, and we didn't even mention that, and that's something that planning and steering committee should work on.
Yeah, well,
And then
let me just gonna interrupt you there. I've been telling you for a long time that we need a capital improvement plan. The problem is, we also gotta update our water master plan, which is from 2007, and that's probably $100,000 project, which we don't have the money to do. So that's why I've shifted to do what some other districts have done, and what I'm suggesting we do, and that's where we have that really extraordinary repairs and maintenance list, and I know I showed it to the planning and steering committee, and we're gonna update it for our next meeting in January, February, but that has all of our equipment, our vehicles, our buildings, treatment plant, and this is information we need to put into that treatment plant so we know. And it also helps you figure out if you need to match funding, what you do to your rates. So that's really what it is. But you're right, they call for that, and that'd be great, but I don't want to wait.
One more thing that has to be worked on.
All right, the next item is.
Wait,
Oh, sorry.
I've been sitting quietly.
Sorry.
Good job.
Would it behoove us to let the county know about these problems? Cause, you know, I go back to that water district that got, broken down when the slide come in, took out their water system. The county helped with that because they were afraid of having to take over. You know, if that system went down, then, you know, it may be a county problem then.
No, I mean, a lot would have to happen before someone took that over, but since Centerville's involved, that treatment plant's more complex for the county to handle.
Yeah, but, you know, that's why it would make sense for them to help us get repairs to it, so we don't have a problem where they would have to take it over.
Or the state.
Yeah. Or even, go to
we
the
have-
federal.
We have a great supervisor, I believe he is,
Chris.
Chris Kellstrom, and maybe that might be a question for him.
Well, I think it's a super good, comment. I think unlike the situation where there was a slide and there may have been a pretty direct nexus to the county having to take over.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit more complicated, but I don't think that means that we shouldn't ask, the county and ask the supervisor.
Yeah, we're not asking them for money.
No.
We're asking them for assistance, you know, maybe they know of a revenue source that we don't know about.
Well, or if nothing else, find out who is it that we should let know in the county family of this situation who could help us.
Yeah, maybe they've got a grant writer that they'd like to loan us.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
So I think,
Do we want to involve?
Have we thought about maybe asking the Connell Foundation for money? They have a lot of it, they're in the water business too, or the tribe, they're putting most of their money into the new Route 5 casino, but they're also building a wellness, a big campus where the present casino is, and what they're gonna do with that casino, I suspect turning into a huge rehab place, but I don't know. They do have lots of money, and then there's always the Sierra Pacific Foundation, which has done well with the county forest. Are those people subject to giving us $100K? I would think maybe.
How about 400?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great suggestions.
Yeah, I think that the beauty, again, of investing $18,000 of what is eventually going to cost us about $20,000 into an engineering report, is now we know what actually to ask for. You know, in some ways we knew, so I think
We'll
getting
put the
this,
name on it and stick in a plaque.
getting this into the hands of as many as we can is gonna be helpful. And I think finding the right avenue at the county, finding the right avenue for foundations, finding the right
You
avenue.
could also do something bizarre, consortium, ask for X dollars from McConnell, X dollars from the tribe, X dollars from Sierra Pacific.
Right.
Let them all up front. This would be a consortium effort, because that's very much we should do. And it will rescue, to a certain extent, this district's obligation of drilling.
Right.
Do we want to invite Chris to our meeting next month, January? I can do that. Or do we want to, I mean, do you want to
I
send
think-
him the report?
I think it might, I don't know if the meeting would work, but I think maybe reaching out to him as a board and say, hey, we'd like to meet with you, maybe just have him meet with a couple board members and me to go over this type of stuff. Might be a better angle than
Okay,
taking up one of his nights.
so,
After the holidays.
Sometime in January.
Yeah.
I'll have this posted pretty quickly, so if you wanted to tell them to speed through, to at least get highlights of what they
Hey, Chris.
Yeah,
I'll contact,
I'll ask him, maybe he wants to come.
yeah. Well, he asks a lot of times, he goes, when are you meeting? And he'll say, is it Wednesday of this week? And no, it was last week, so he's always got it all.
Okay, well then,
Okay.
give him the option. Thank you, to the board. 6D is a follow-up a little bit on our leaks and repairs report from last month and additional information. And, the board had asked to bring this back to talk a little bit about some next steps. You know, how do we start, tackling this issue of, number of leaks? As mentioned in here, just for context, since the beginning of November, there have been 12 emergency repair leaks. I put in your packet the list that Distribution Supervisor Morgan Rao had brought before you. I see I misspelled her name. And then she also provided a list of line repairs. This is on page 4 of the packet, from starting at November 7th and running through December 5th. And in that, this is some of the stuff that we have on our leak reports. It includes the location, description, hours worked, and the personnel on them. And then there's, I had asked Amity that we start tracking how many people are affected, and I think as a way to start building our case for emergency, we have an emergency out here. So there's, on the last page of this, there's just a few of these leaks that shows you what streets were affected and the number of customers that were affected. And this is because our new system, customer database system, allows us to send alerts to streets or customers. And so once that's done, then we have a number, and that's put in there. So I think, there's some options here. We need to find some estimates and costs for key areas. We need to work on that spreadsheet of major repairs and replacement. We could hold some targeted community meetings. We could develop another line replacement grant and submit to the water board or state revolving fund, or develop a strategy on leak locations to increase repair areas, kind of like, okay, this is an area that's getting a lot of leaks, let's have enough pipe so that when there's a leak, we replace not just that one leak area, but, areas farther up and And then I also, gave you the plan of study, which is just sort of which is the distribution system improvement project. It's dated January of 2021. This was prepared by Pace. This is the subject of the grant that we've applied for at the state. And this is the subject of what they told us, when was that, Bill, in February, that the state didn't have any money. We'll talk to you next year. I also added that I found in our binder, well, first of all, this is it's actually pretty interesting reading as of 2021. It shows you, it has some reports of a lot of our leaks. What it really highlights is that, we've had 79 10-inch line breaks, or 60% of our ruptures, from 1975 up to 2020. So that's why this has a bit of a focus on the 10-inch AC pipe. It also, so it has like almost 6,000 feet of 10-inch pipe. It has 12 valves. It has 2,252 meter heads, which we've already gotten the grant today. It has 404 new water meters. That was to put every accessory dwelling unit on a separate water meter. And it has 12 new fire hydrants. And it kind of has a 2021 cost estimate for all that work. It comes out to be about 4.2 million. And I have that as your last page of your table 1.
Is that, the 90-10 grant though?
Huh?
Is that the 90-10 grant? Or is there gonna be
Yeah, well, the total cost estimate, 4.2 million, and
and our cost would be about 435?
400,000, yeah, the 10% would be our cost.
Okay.
What size line was, I looked here and I couldn't find it, what size line is the flowers?
10-inch.
Is it 10-inch?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Bill might be even more familiar with this particular thing. So Bill, do you have any other comments on this one?
Yeah, just real quick, and if it's okay, I'll look from right here. Using our status of being disadvantaged community, that was going to be 100% funded using, at the time, Prop 1 money, Prop 1 funding through DFA. And there's 3 zones that were targeted, a portion of China Gulch, a portion of Flowers, and a portion of Olinda. And so the last little bit of environmental was completed there in 22 I believe I reported forward at the time about roadside ditches. The state laid claim to the surface waters on the side of the road. And then that's when we hit the roadblock about a year ago or whenever.
Yeah.
And the state said, talk to us in a year, and it's coming up on a year. So we just asked recently, we haven't heard.
Don't we have time limits on environmental reports though?
We do 3 years, 5 years, something like that.
It's safe to say that we have at least 3. It might be 5, but I don't know.
Okay, so we're gonna have an issue.
So I kind of asked this last time, and tell me if I'm out of line, which I've been no meeting. Could we, since Flowers, I'm just going through the Morgan report, since Flowers, they took 28 hours or of overtime to do that, minimum of, except for one time, 4 people. Could we say, since the leak is happening from the place that they replaced forward towards Canyon or towards Happy Valley Road, could we find out the length of pipe that is and see how much it would cost. And we have a loan through the bank for the pond to help us between grant monies. Could we pay for the pipe, do that, and I don't know, add a replacement cost, but it would kind of be our float money to replace that line. I mean, if we figured out the cost of what it costs overtime, and with all the equipment we had to rent,
Right.
we would save money by borrowing from our loan to pay for it and then pay it back. I think your idea of meeting with the peoples on Flowers, they're a pretty nice group of people on the whole. I mean, there's other streets that we could go on, and that we probably wouldn't give as nice a reception, but that would take care of one of our areas, just like Olinda. Olinda, we had that for almost 2 years, maybe 3, and I hate saying it because I'm gonna jinx it, but, you guys replaced so much line that we have kind of gotten to the point where we didn't have a lot this year. I think that way we also are, not having to file a master plan and go through all of the rigmarole that requires.
Well, so I do think, let's stay on this item. I do think we need to work with Pace to make sure that this request is current as of like January 2025. And make sure that we've got some updated items, make sure our environmental is good, so that when we go to the state, because Judah Salazar, who was representing the state, when they told us in February last year, or this year, said, we'll talk to you again in January 2025. We need to be ready to say, if you guys aren't gonna give us any money, we gotta go a different route. Tell us yes or no, right? And I do think that in that we can find out from Pace as well, the answer to that question, which is how much of this 1,300 feet of Flowers is like this section that we've been having all this trouble in that we can focus on, and how much is that gonna cost? We cannot use the RCAC grant anticipation note for this work. We've securitized that note based on the revenue stream of getting reimbursed from the state and federal government, and that they've signed the grant to reimburse us for that money, and that it's on the treatment plant, not on the distribution system. But if we have a known amount and a specific project, we could go to iBank, we can go, even to RCAC and get a note, and then, we have the $1 per month state loan thing that we're using for the interest on our current RCAC loan. Potentially use that to pay off a very short.
I just think we've got to start, instead of talking about problem, that's why the train was such a priority for Beverly and I.
Yeah.
To get fixed, because you can talk forever, but we've got to do something about it. Money.
Mm-hmm.
In the budget we had that much set aside for it. Okay.
I have a couple of questions that are related and not related. It's with the line repairs and whatnot, and I'm looking at the various ones, and I'm looking at, we have contractors there and 5 people there, and are we managing our staff? Could we have reduced some of that staff cost, overtime especially? And doing payroll, I remember somewhere in early, mid-November, I saw water treatment staff did a line repair.
Yeah, this was covered at the last meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it?
They were there, they traded it out so that the other guys could go home.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was.
All right.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Must have been half awake.
That's all right. And
My
it's-
concern
it is-
was, were they trained to be doing the work?
Well, all the.
Morgan
people-
is doing a great job at
Yeah.
that.
I agree.
I think it kind of probably depends on what they were doing, so I know Bill was emptying out,
I'm assuming there was a contract. in there.
hydrants or whatever. That one day that the last break was or something.
And then right after that, I went and dug a main line.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at like, what, November 8th, there was a 6-hour repair, they used a vac trailer, but it took 5 people for a 4-inch AC line.
That was a 6-inch line.
6-inch? Okay, this mentions 4.
So on our, and I'm a little off the subject, but it's a leak. On our bills, there was, the amount, it was like $400 or $500 for a hydrant repair. That I think is what the one CAL FIRE backed in, or
Said
tree
company.
company.
did they pay us?
Not yet. But I was gonna mention that in my GM report, we have sent them a letter, we sent it to the tree company that actually is the contractor for CAL FIRE that hit the hydrant. And we've sent them an invoice for $6,000 plus or minus dollars, which includes man hours, rental, the full boat to fix it.
How about CAL FIRE as far as turning on and off the fire hydrants and causing the leaks?
Yeah, we are sending a letter, we had to assemble a lot of the costs, so the letter just going out. We're sending a letter to both CAL FIRE and Happy Valley Fire Department. And it basically says on November 7th and 8th, we had these 2 major leaks. And our investigation shows that the rapid turning off of the hydrants may have causes hammering and all those other kind of things. And that the cost for those repairs is around $19,000. So we want you to be aware of that, and that you need to have training, and we could offer training, and we need a letter of agreement on how to handle these things in the future.
And did we ask him to pay for that time?
no, he's not.
Because they've already told us and
Yeah.
That's nice.
Well, but yes, if we had an agreement in the future with that, that's gonna cover us.
Next time, tell him how to our attorney.
Because
Is there any
otherwise-
requirement for them to sign that?
Well, can
no,
we,
but
I mean,
well, in talking, especially the Happy Valley Fire, they yes, we need to do more training. Yes, we need to have a better relationship. We, we happen to know that it was CAL FIRE that was the last on fire, and they were the ones that were turning off the hydrant. But, we had an example today in which a contractor for a future customer is gonna go build a house, and they wanted to know which hydrant they can go turn on to check the flows for. And our response was, well, you need to get a hydrant meter. You need to do this, you need to do that. And what I told Morgan to tell them, that if they take water from the hydrant, they will, they're stealing water, so they better know that we'll wanna take care of that, right? So, and part of that is, nobody that isn't trained should be touching those things. So, one of the things that, at the Joint Powers Insurance Agency conference, 2 weeks ago, is, they actually showed, so one of the districts had come up with an innovative, lock for their, hydrants. And I know Morgan has already ordered locks and has been installing them and working with the fire department on that, so they have access to it, to prevent stealing from water and unauthorized people touching our hydrants.
Good. Sorry.
That's right.
Very good.
Well, your options, if you're wanting us to look at your options, so yes, please keep working on the improvement grant. Yes, maybe, hold a community meeting with the, targeted areas, that would be a good community thing to do, in my estimation. Do we just want them to do all of those options?
Well, these are just some, if you have other ones that you want me to do, I mean, I think these are all things, I mean,
Well, I think those two would be a good start, how about
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
And I think, you know, if we ask them to do too much or whatever, they're not gonna listen to us. They'll just turn us off,
Whose fault?
people.
well, again, we have, you know, I haven't talked to Andy about this, but we also need to figure out a way to get more of this information on our website, both the engineering report on the treatment, because the more we can educate the community on
I agree.
these things are costing us, and so we'll work on that part too. That wasn't one of the options, but it's one of the things that's on my brain that we need to do.
So do you need anything from us?
Nope, this was really for information and for you all to know what we're doing as it relates to this issue and to give us some feedback on that. Next item, if you're ready to move on to it, is 6E, which is the reserve policy. So first of all, I've got an amendment to make to this. It is supposed to be ordinance 2024-12. When I put this together, I used the 24-10 template.
We've passed that.
So I think the board knows that we have been spending the last 18 months updating a lot of policies, thanks to our volunteer, Emily Rankin. She did work on the reserve policy update and had a pretty good draft about 6 months ago, and we had 2 opportunities before the finance committee. The one that's currently posted on our website is all the way back to 2018.
Yes.
So this updates things to be more current. So you got the intent policy. I think the main thing I just want, you know, we also waited till we changed banks and things like that, but it has our designated and restricted reserves, which has basically our USVR, the Bureau's reserve fund that's in a CD that's per contract for emergencies. The filtration plant reserve, so that's the 1 year's payment on that plant that's in a CD. Then we also have a filter plant repayment reserve, so that's the yearly amount, so that's the $7.55 fee that goes in, and then yearly the state pulls money out of that. We also have the backwash recycle water reserve, so that both has the 38 cents fee going into it, and it has a 1 year payment of that fee. We just the district never put that separately in a CD. But it's actually identified here, and the state wanted to see that that is stated in our reserve fund policy. And you can see we've got, you know, later on, we've got our operational reserve with a goal of $1 million, our capital improvement modernization reserve with a goal of $1.5 million. And, you know, those two are funded by the 4.1% of the water usage rate, and the other one is the 1.8% of the base rate. So this is ready for your approval. Oh, and it says at the top that we'll look at it every 2 years, so hopefully we'll update it sooner than 16 years.
Anybody got any questions?
I move we accept the reserve fund policy 2024-12 as shown to us.
$200 for hitting that, fourth head hydrant. Cal Fire and, Happy Valley Fire, letting them know the costs of $19,000 and the training and, an agreement letter. You've received updates on the backwash ponds, the concrete has been poured. In the operations report, I think we actually have a number of cubic yards is 1,195. In the operations report, there's actually kind of an updated picture in comparison to a previous picture. Gave you an update on the distribution system improvement grant. We did submit our quarterly report to the county on the ARPA grant. So we're 100% complete on that grant as it relates to the funding. In other words, we have expended and they have reimbursed us all of the money, the $262,000 that they were going to fund us with, to purchase the transponders and registers, and Morgan and her crew are out installing them.
Well, they were talking about it at the lunch. They were about how they said what they had to do, where they were going, and they all have a plan. It was really fun to watch them.
Yeah, and I think, like Amity was just mentioning to me before the meeting, Morgan's got them with this sheet that they gotta fill out, and that way it gets put in correctly into our system, so. I think she installed like 100 of them and tested them this current meter reading, and all of a sudden, wow, we got a whole bunch more meters that are showing up on our readers.
And they're figuring out the ones that are not working.
Yeah.
I mean, they were talking about that they have it written all down. It was fun to watch them.
Eavesdrop on, yeah, it's a fun project. I will just mention, the Association of California Water Agencies and Joint Powers Insurance Agency Conference. First of all, their May conference is May 12th and 13th in Monterey of 2025. On the Joint Powers Insurance Agency side of things, the liability rates, 7 or 8% increase. The workers' comp rates seem to be holding pretty steady. They are continuing to be very focused on the cyber security elements of things, and as I like to call them, they had a scare panel as well that was talking about some challenges that other districts have had with cybersecurity, including one slightly larger than ours that were hacked, and a virus was encrypting every one of their directories sequentially over time. It was taking it about a week or so to encrypt all of the directories. So they actually caught it before the ransomware came in, but they were not able to fix it or cure itself from the virus. And so they basically had to unplug their server and spend much money and plug in a new server and restore from a not previously encrypted backup that was about 6 or 7 weeks old, and then manually update everything from there. So again, this is why we actually spend about $4,000 a year on cyber liability insurance with them. It's also why we spent a pretty good amount of money to get 2 firewalls here, one here and one at other locations, to make sure that every time things get into our network, they're going through a firewall. The one thing I would just mention on the Association of California Water Agency side of things, they had a pretty big panel on the unconstrained or natural flows versus healthy rivers or negotiated agreements. I think I've reported to you before a potential risk to the district, probably less so for a smaller district like us, but more so for districts that have contracts with the Bureau for hundreds of thousands of acre feet, is that the state water board, based on recommendations from fisheries organizations think that maybe we should just let the river flow naturally and go into the delta for the fish, therefore we can't store the water as much, and therefore certain agencies, especially those that have large, hundreds of thousands of acre feet of water, may have to give up half their water for that. And so the alternative is a healthy rivers or negotiated agreements in which there are times in which certain districts would have to give up some water, but there would be other times that wouldn't, and it would be less. So it's a kind of a challenge with the state regulators. The other is, there was a lot more information at Aqua on the sort of weather forecasting tools and all kinds of things like that. I'm in, there's a lot of technology, GIS technology and different things, as well as energy and pumps. And then the other thing that was the first time they've ever done it, the Bureau invited what they called a Central Valley Project family reception with the State Water Project. And it was a reception, I think, on a Wednesday at like 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And Carl Stock, our current Western Region Bureau Commissioner, was there and was greeting people, and there were a lot of people there from the Central Valley Project Water Association. So that was very good, and I think it led into the Mid-Pacific Water Users Conference is coming up at the end of last week of January. Director Fickus went last year. Again, if there's ever a chance.
I can go, I think.
What?
I can go.
Oh, that'd be great.
Dates have been changed, so I can go.
Oh, dates on your stuff.
Yeah, on my stuff.
Because the conference hasn't changed.
Right.
Okay. Well, just let me know, and just need to know by the end of the month, and then we'll get everybody registered.
Bill, if we've got the funding to go, it's really well worth it. They have a lot of treatment plant people over there, so.
Yep.
It was very beneficial, very, very beneficial.
Yeah, I didn't get it to him until today, but I did send Bill an email saying, hey, they look at.
Well, I guess you gotta talk to your boss, I'm sorry, I kinda.
Oh, yeah.
Oops.
We all have that. No, it's good. Good. I'll stop there. Anything? Any questions? Anybody?
Nope.
We covered all the treatment plant operations on the operations report, and we pretty much all of the distribution items that Morgan put in there. There are, last page, there's a picture, I know it's black and white, if you printed it that way. The first one in the upper left is with still some equipment in the pond, and then up to the right and bottom is kind of what it cleared out. Last week, Bill and the contractor did a bunch of punch list items, and hopefully they'll get to the point where we'll have enough weather to get those done, dry weather for a while, and then we can test the pond. The top part, the admin side of things.
That looks awfully high. That's a lot of accounts. What are we doing?
Yeah,
Think of the timing of it.
Yeah.
I've been running the report.
Yeah, in this case, we're doing meter reading a little earlier this month so that we can get statements and everything sent out with Christmas being right in the middle of the week. And so when you run this report on December 12th, that's well before a lot of people sometimes don't
Good
get
day.
it
Got
until
it.
the 15th, before the 20th.
Okay, yeah, cause the 20th.
Yeah.
Any way to change that with this new system?
Change which?
the due
The
date.
due date. I guess not, because we rotate when we,
Yeah.
when we. Thank you for that, that's actually.
Good enough, right? mention on the committee side, the next ag committee will probably be in March, but there was a very good, voluntary, olive grower meeting last, week. And, I think our volunteer coordinator of that, Dennis Posan, has some tasks to work on.
We actually had an agreement to form an Olive Growers Association. And then we're gonna look into CAP for help in any of the legal aspects of organizing it, possible grants that way. Did you get a phone call?
I did.
Good, for cooking?
Yeah.
Okay, that was something I wanted to make sure of.
Well, I think that there's a lot of olive growers, I don't know if you knocked on their doors, that are a long scout that don't know a thing about it.
No, that's quite possible, we haven't done any door knocking. It's been on marquees, it's been in the newsletter.
Quite a few phone calls, quite a few
Yeah,
emails.
there's been phone calls
journals,
and
like
whatnot.
to the people we have contact information for, so.
Dennis had a pretty decent sized list of people that
Yes,
he has
he-
contacts with addresses.
Yes, that being said, I mean, even with those that he has contacts for, there were probably 4 or 5 of the envelopes that were sent out that returned for the survey, so, and I think one of the elements of forming an association is you gotta knock on people's doors too. The finance committee met on the 10th, so that item was on this agenda, the planning and steering first quarter of 2025. Is when we'll probably go and get, now that we got more information to put into our spreadsheet. And then just another reminder, I know I've said this a lot the last few months. In January, you will be selecting your chair, you will then have assignments for your standing committees, and I'm going to have on your list a ad hoc committee for Centerville, with the purpose of renegotiating or redoing the agreement. That way, limited term and specific functions. So, something, while you're celebrating Christmas, you can go, I wonder if I want to be on. That's it, the rest of it is up to the board comments.
Anybody got anything?
Yeah. While I've got Bill here, as director, are we on for a tour? We should try to do a date. I don't know what your work schedule is like.
Sometime after the first of the year at this point,
Okay,
if that is best.
that's workable. Sure.
Yeah. January 17th and 20th, I will be out of town. I'm fairly open outside of that, so something in the afternoon would be nice. Whatever works for you, though.
On a non-rainy day.
Typically like to do on a clear day, I guess if it did enough rain, we'll just drive around, but, we'll make something happen.
The other item would be the oath. And since you weren't here when we first discussed it, you probably got that email.
I did, yes.
And you either have to go in physically
Mm-hmm.
and, take the oath in the office,
Or I have to contact.
or you have to
them.
contact them and they will mail you an affidavit to take to a notary.
Yes.
Okay.
Tri-Counties does notary free.
I will
If you ever
just
in
go
town.
and take care of it. It'll be all right.
It takes more time to find a parking space and walk up. Then you have the option to either repeat what they say or just read it yourself.
Okay.
So, one item I have is while we were going through all of these paperwork, and I'm looking at the heading of Clear Creek, it just caught my attention. If you look at our agenda, page 1, Clear Creek up at the top, we have a fax number. Do we still have?
Still using that form. I have updated all the ones on the Chase drive, he must have,
Do we
have them saved in his computer.
Oh, do we have a fax
No,
number?
we do not.
Okay. I thought if we do, I know we're not using it, let's get rid of it.
Yeah, no, I have all the cards that I have on. And
Okay.
they're updated, but you must have them saved on
Change the
his
template.
computer.
previous agenda. Thanks.
Yeah. I did.
Actually, you know, we probably should just put CCCSD at clearcreekcsd.org up there, so when people email.
Yeah.
Use that, yeah.
Mhm.
Anybody else got anything? Anybody from public? Done.
All right.